Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFA Shop. This week we're going to get the radiators mounted and we're going to try and get this wiring finished off. Alright, so you saw last week, we got this thing fired up again, which is awesome. It's been a long time since this thing has run, so it's awesome to have it back to that level. So now what I need to do is mount some radiators and finish off the wiring underneath the cab. So the radiators are going to go one in the back, full-size Commodore radiator, under the tray, probably pretty flat, which I'm not super happy on, but we'll see how that goes. And then we've got a small radiator up front, which is just going to run off of the heater hoses and have no blockages in it, just straight through the heater hoses, straight through the radiator, straight back in. So hopefully that'll try and cool it down as well, and then hopefully together they can keep it cool enough. So let's see how we go. So I've done everyone's least favorite thing, and I've done some work off camera. So I've got a small radiator here. Dale used to use this on his supercharged LS. So this was the supercharger cooler. So I'm going to mount it on the chassis rails like that, and then have a fan on the bottom. So hopefully the air will come through here and the fan will pull it through. So then on the back of that is two small hoses just there, that silver bit. So I need to run those to the engine for the heater lines, and then hopefully that'll keep us cool in the front. We've got a few more mounts to make for that, which are pretty fun. This one's pretty simple, just sits in the front. So it just sits in the front, just behind this, and bolts onto the radiator. And then this other one is a little bit bent, a little bit wacky, and it comes off of the battery tray and points up and actually holds the back of the radiator. So hopefully between the three of those, it should be stable and enough. And then in the back, not too sure how I'm going to tackle it, but I've got two bits of metal that mount to the tray mounts, and then they will be able to hold the radiator with some holes and some rubbers and all that sort of stuff. So let's get into mounting the front one. We'll tidy up this wiring, and then I'll worry about the back problem later. All right, it's another new day. I feel a little bad. I did some work off camera, but I had some mates over and I was talking to them and working away, so got a little bit done. I don't know why I'm showing you the side of the truck. So what I've done is under the front of the truck here, I've mounted two little terminals. So I'm going to run all the engine wiring to those terminals and then go from here to the battery. So this will mean I can get a jump pack on the car if I need to, because the battery is up here and super buried and really hard to get to. So if I need to, there is a spot for jumpers. So I'll chuck that in there. And then you can see this radiator here. So what I've done with this is I've got a bracket here, which is really awkward and quite twisted. So I need to weld that to the battery bracket. And we've got a main one here, which goes across and actually mounts to the top of the radiator like that. And then across to the chassis rail and sits on top. So I need to make that bolt through the chassis rail and hold on, because currently it's pretty loose. And then at the front, we've got this little just over 90-degree one. Just has a couple of bolts in it. So super fiddly to get that to the right spot. But I'm pretty happy with where it's sitting now. The only problem is the actual hose inlets and outlets are going to be really close to the battery. So I'll need to get some tight 90s when I get some hoses. So I'll finish up under here. I'll get this wiring finished off as much as I can. Get this guy finished off as much as I can. And then I'll show you the rear radiator, which I haven't started yet, and we'll try and show the process a little bit better on that one, because I've been very bad at filming the last couple of days. Okay, so I've got new battery cables made up here. So obviously the battery end. The other end I haven't cut to length yet, and I'm just going to put some terminals on the end. Then they will connect to these blocks just here, and then they go to the main power for the fuse panel, and then the main power for the engine. Then there's a good earth on this side, and I will probably add some more later, but this one goes to the chassis and that one goes to the engine. So I probably need another one that goes to the cab, and then obviously the one from the battery will be onto here as well. So that's pretty much as far as I can go with that for now. There's obviously some fan wiring just hanging here, but I don't have a fan mounted, and I also don't have a radiator mounted. Sorry if this is awkward to watch. I'm obviously laying on my back underneath this truck. So the next job is to mount this radiator. It's currently sort of resting where it is. I need to make sure it's actually attached. So there's a piece of angle line just here that needs to be drilled through and bolted to the chassis rail, and then this piece here needs to be welded to the battery tray to keep it all nice and square. So I'll try and work on that. So I'm going to have to try and fit a drill in here which is not a very big area, and drill through here and put a hole in. Or I'm thinking I may go off this hole in the side of the chassis rail and put like a strap, and then weld said strap to the actual crossbar. So we'll see how we go with that. It's all a bit tight and a bit tricky. So we'll do all that, and then I'll move to the back radiator, get that mounted, and then I need to sort out a fan for the front here. Alright, so the radiator is fully mounted now. I've drilled through here on both sides and put a bolt through. So the one on that side, I had to take the brake pedal out to get the drill in there, and then got the drill in there, put the brake pedal back in, put the bolt in, nice and easy. It was just a bit fiddly. And then this bracket down here, I have welded that, which I had to sit back here and just sort of spray. So I've got it all welded, which is good, and now the radiator is nice and firm, and you can shake the whole truck with it, or the camera in my case. So now, the wiring is about as done as it can be for now, so I get a battery. The radiator is mounted as full as it can be, and I just need to get some hoses. So the only thing left to do on the front is to put the fan on the bottom. So I've taken the radiator out, put a fan on there, and then the back radiator. Alright, so the next thing to make for this front radiator is a fan shroud. So what I'd like to do is space this fan up a little bit so that there's a nice room for the air to move, and then I'd like to cover in all of the sides. So this will bolt to the back of the shroud. The shroud will fold over at the ends, bolt to whatever I can along the sides, and then it should seal up, and then the fan will actually use this whole surface area to pull through rather than just the circumference of the fan. So we'll jump into that and cut out some aluminium, chuck you guys on time lapse, and see how far we can get tonight. Alright, so I've got the fan shroud all cut out. I just filed the edges just quickly. So now what I need to do is fold this in the correct direction, which is actually this way. And then with my finger folder, I need to adjust the fingers and then put a piece of flat bar underneath so that it folds nice and crisply along the line that I want. So I'm going to chuck you back on hyperlapse, and hopefully this will look like a fan shroud in just a minute. After all that cutting, I just bent that in the wrong spot. I'm going to try and flatten it out, but I'm pretty sure it's going to crack. Well, I'm going to try and save it, and I've told you that I stuffed it up, so I may as well chuck it in and show you how I'm going to try and fix it. And my soft blow hammer just exploded, and ball bearings went everywhere. Wonderful. Alright, so I got the fan shroud here, pretty happy with how it turned out. I think I'm cracked in one spot where that double fold was, so it's got a little bit of a crack through here. I may have to get that welded up later, we'll see how it fares. So I'm pretty happy with that. Going to put some nutserts in now and then bolt the fan to it and then see how it fits on the radiator. Alright, so straight away I saw a problem with this. I forgot to cut this corner out for the filler, which is actually the drain in this case, and then it just needs a little bit of fiddling to actually fit over some of the welds and the bosses and stuff. Then I need to drill the holes for the bosses to accept bolts, which will be a little tricky, but other than that it fits reasonably well. So I'm kind of out of time today. I need to go and do some stuff, but tomorrow I'll come in, I'll cut that off and then try and fiddle with the other stuff, and it should all fit pretty good. And then we'll chuck this back under the truck and see if it all fits with everything that's under there. So we'll see first thing in the morning. Alright, so last night I kept tinkering with this and ended up finding out that it doesn't actually fit under the truck. So this little bit of gap where my finger is on either end or at each side is just enough to make it not fit under the truck. So what I think I'm going to do is cut all the bends off and then get it TIG welded, the flat panel and the fan TIG welded straight to the alley radiator, which I'm not super happy about, but it's better than not having a shroud, and it's better than this that doesn't fit. So what I'm going to do for now is just move on to the back and try and get the rear radiator mounted, and then I'll come back to this at a later date. Alright, quick cleanup, shuffle the ute over a little bit more. So I'm going to do this rear radiator, so what I'm going to do is probably drop this section of the exhaust so I can get in there a little bit easier, and then I've got a few bits up here that I've already cut to length, so let's get into it. Alright, so I've taken this side exhaust off and then measured some things. Drilled a piece of angle line so that the two pins on the bottom of the radiator slot into that nicely. I'm probably going to have to drill these out and put the big rubbers in there. I haven't got any at the moment, so I'm just going to ignore it for now. And then I made two little pedestals for the front, so they'll get welded to another piece of angle line. So to get this started, I need to mount an end. Doesn't really matter which end. So I'm going to start at the back because there's a bar running across the chassis that it's actually in the way. So what I want to do is space it this far forwards. So this is going to go, that mount just there, it's going to go off the front of that, and then a piece of angle going across, and then back across to the other tray mount. So I'll weld these together, get that one in there, and then that will give me the radiator in the right spot, and then I can mount the front bar in the right distance with the radiator actually in there. And this will all be removable, obviously, because I don't know if this radiator is going to work at all. So I'll try not to drill any holes in the truck itself, just try and make some brackets. All right, so something like that. These brackets are welded on, so now I need to drill a hole to actually bolt them to the truck, but I need to get it in there and mark it all first. So that's pretty much done for now. I'll chuck it in the truck and mark some holes, drill some holes, bolt it up, and then I'll catch you up to speed. All right, I've done the thing. As you can see, the fans are up here for one very specific reason. They don't fit. So I did measure that and I didn't leave enough room, pretty much. So the radiator's pretty happy where it is now. It's all mounted in. The back is bolted in properly and fully welded. The front is just sort of bolted as best I can whilst leaving it loose. Once I get the rubbers in, it's going to push the radiator forwards a little bit and probably up a little bit or down a little bit. We'll see. So I haven't welded that bracket on, but that will happen later. So next I tried to put the fans in, and we've got about 90 to 100 mil of clearance from the radiator to that crossbar. And the fans are about 110 mil. So there's probably a solid 10 to 20 mil where it doesn't fit. So in saying that, I've been sitting here for like 20 minutes trying to work out what to do to fix that. The radiator can't go any lower without taking these brackets off. And I don't want to do that because that's a large part of the chassis. Obviously doesn't add any strength, but I'd like to leave that just in case for some reason I wanted to reverse everything I've done. Pretty much everything is reversible. I've only drilled a couple of holes in the chassis and obviously fixed the floor of the cab. Pretty much everything else is reversible. So I don't really want to take that bracket off. So what I'm thinking is I needed to finish the tray mounts anyway. Why don't I just make it a little bit higher? So if I make the tray, say 20 mil, 30 mil higher, the fans will fit. So if I go, say 50 mil, which is quite a lot, the only thing I'd have to change is the exhaust mount on either side and the actual tray mounts itself. So I'm not sure what I can do there, but that's the only way I can think of to get fans on the radiator and still have room and nothing rub. So that pretty much leaves me with a rear radiator mounted and no fans that fit, and a front radiator mounted and no fans that fit. So I'm not sure what to do from here. All right, so I've spent all day trying to work on this thing, and I've come up with a lot of hurdles and not really that many solutions. So I'm gonna leave it there for this episode. I'm sure in a week or two I'll find some more solutions, but probably next week I'll have something else on this thing, but a different step. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next week.